Well, hello everyone. Well, here we are again this fall, online, separated to help minimize the risk to spread COVID-19. I know it can be frustrating and tiring and sometimes lonely, but then again, sometimes as security professionals, we just call that another day as we try to educate our leaders, our colleagues, and our customers on the potential risks and often the basic adjustments needed to progress, to innovate, and better protect data and enable payments. You know, a recent study published in the Harvard Business Review showed that while working remotely on average, we've lost 20% of our personal connections, while obviously strengthening those that we're closest with, such as our family. What we've noticed is that while we miss these opportunities to catch up in person with all of our friends and colleagues in the payment industry, we've done a fairly good job at remaining connected to many of you. Today, we're here to celebrate that. All that's been accomplished, discuss what remains ahead, and interact with you to discuss the future. You'll notice that many of the engagement opportunities include discussing what lies ahead and hearing from you about the advancements in technology, payment acceptance, and much more. Now, I don't consider this social distancing, but rather only physical distancing as we take part in all of the different chances for social interaction here, today. With the chat and networking sessions like conversations with the council, there's so many opportunities to engage throughout the video presentation. These are things we've been doing all along, albeit through this imperfect technology that sometimes can be a little bit distracting as it is useful. During this talk, you're going to hear a lot of information about all the many things the PCI Council has been doing from a variety of industry experts who have helped elevate the need and awareness for payment security and the importance of interacting and information sharing as a community. You know, this situation hasn't been ideal or without its disruptions. Cybersecurity threats have quickly evolved during the pandemic, with phishing and social engineering attacks rising by more than 70% according to several law enforcement reports. It's hard to believe with all this awareness campaign that people are still susceptible. But everyone is shown to be adaptive. Not just the criminals, but those who are combating the threat and raising awareness. Excuse me, while I go and answer these urgent text messages. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce one of our Board of Advisor members, Target Chief Information Security Officer Rich Augustino, who has been an industry leader advocating for more global information sharing. Dear Sovereign Prince, I will send you your payment immediately.
Well, first, Troy, I'd say don't pay. But second, I would say, I wish the threats that we were facing today were that easy to recognize. We've seen an increase in the volume and complexity of threats for a lot of years now. And in 2020, we saw a massive shift. Just like our business models and our lives were disrupted from the pandemic, the cyber criminal markets were disrupted too. And that meant that they had to pivot and find new ways of making money. We saw them go after two big areas. The first was, just like we all jumped online, they realized that the real money was to be made in e-commerce. And we saw an increase in attacks across the industry in terms of account takeovers and digital skimming, complex multi-channel fraud schemes. And the second area they jumped on was ransomware, which we're hearing a lot about this year, mostly because there's been a couple of big attacks in the media. But realistically, there's been over 1,000 known victims of ransomware in 2021 alone. The average payment has gone up more than 3,800%. And so this is a multi-billion-dollar market, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. All these reasons are why Target for years has invested in building expertise in-house. It's why we have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week cyber fusion center looking at these threats and responding to incidents. It's why we build strong internal engineering tools. It's why we have a strong security culture. But we also know that whatever Target does is never going to be enough alone. We truly believe that security has to be a team sport for all of us to be successful. That's why I sit on the board of the Retail and Hospitality ISAC and why we're a leading sharer of threat intelligence information to the industry. It's why I'm part of the PCI Council Board of Advisors, working with my peers across industries to share awareness around threats and try to align controls to help combat those threats. So at the end of the day, I think if there's one message I could leave everybody with, it's that we are stronger together. So work with us and work with each other. Remember, security is a team sport.
Well, thank you, Rich. He and I spoke at an e-commerce summit this past summer for the Retail and Hospitality ISAC on ransomware, phishing, and malware attacks, specifically in the e-commerce space. Since the beginning of 2020, e-commerce sales have grown substantially ahead of the growth trajectory, and Forbes has stated that pandemic accelerated e-commerce adoption by 4 to 5 years, which means even more incentive for criminals to target for online digital skimming. To raise awareness to that issue, we are working with several associations around the world to publish ransomware awareness, promote easy to implement defenses to these type of threats. Well, that's not the only recent industry bulletin we've published. You may have noticed that during this time, PCI Council has looked at how we can deliver more information relevant to the current payment security issues beyond just the requirements we create within standards. In fact, we've published 42% more blogs each year since the end of 2019. Here to talk more about the speed of communication delivery is our Senior Manager of Communication, Lindsay Goodspeed.
Wait, I need to be fast?
Well, you could take your time. Just, be quick about it.
Okay. The Global Communications team has been working this year to educate stakeholders on many priority topics, including standards update, such as the progress of PCI DSS version 4.0 and the sunset dates related to PA-DSS. We've educated the community on many participation opportunities, including requests for comment periods, council-hosted events, and special election periods, such as the upcoming Brazil Regional Engagement Board nomination period. The audience of our PCI Perspectives blog has seen tremendous growth over the years, and we continue to look for ways to improve how we deliver resources to meet the industry's needs. This past year, we delivered payment security educational resources with a new Back to Basics blog series. We launched a new podcast which focuses on closing the gender gap in payments by highlighting leading women in the payments industry. We have also continued to provide guidance on changes impacting the payments industry because of the pandemic. We deliver all of this information through our many communications channels. If you don't already, please make sure to subscribe to our PCI Perspectives blog and our LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube channels. Was that information fast enough for you, Troy?
Oh, I never doubted you for a second, Lindsay. It's been nice to see the recognition that our communications has received recently, with an increase in the number of blog subscribers growing by 72% since the beginning of January 2020. And our Women in Payment series has received multiple awards. To make the information even more accessible, we will soon be introducing a new mobile app and a new website design to help navigate more easily all the content that's available, as well as more personalized notifications and searchability for the information that you're looking for. Additionally, we will want to continue to communicate regularly with you beyond just the blogs and the PCI Monitor and interact to better answer questions that you are looking for. One of those individuals that you may engage with is Elizabeth Terry on my team. Elizabeth is the Senior Manager for Community Engagement and helps with our ongoing education and support many of you have with a certification by the PCI Council. Elizabeth, can you share with us some of the recent changes by the PCI Council?
Thanks, Troy. We wanted a way to be able to keep everyone informed and up to date, specifically after you've received your qualification from PCI. So our ongoing education efforts expanded with the implementation of webcast series for PCI professionals and qualified integrators and resellers that was modeled after our All Assessor webcast series. So Assessor and PCIP webcasts are held quarterly. QIR is held biannually, and then in all the webcasts, we bring you up-to-date information on any standards or program changes. We brought in external speakers to talk about things that are happening in the field, and recently we introduced real-world under attack and use cases that have been incredibly well received. So then the other engagement tool that we use to continue that ongoing education, but also for you to be able to demonstrate your skills and abilities, was the introduction of digital badging through Credly, like those through ISACA, ISC Squared, and other accrediting bodies. So if you have a certification through any of our programs, you can opt into the digital badge for that particular program and then display that badge on your LinkedIn profile, in your resume, on your email signature, etc. And then people are automatically able to validate that you have that qualification and what some of the skills might be for that. So we're really excited about this. So you haven't opted in yet, please do so. And then the last thing we have are our networking sessions, which are typically face-to-face at our community meetings where you can get together, network with other PCIPs or ISAs, have drinks, chats, get to know each other. And this year, like last year, they're being held online, virtually. And we'd love for you to join us at our ISA networking session that's coming up this week directly after the general session. So back to you, Troy.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. You know, we cannot wait to get back in person to have opportunities to mingle with our community.
Troy, you do realize it's online, it's virtual, right? I'm gonna keep this just for safekeeping.
You know, we've had really good participation in the webinars. It's phenomenal to see. Elizabeth, how many have taken advantage of attending?
What's that? Thanks for that question, Troy. I'm happy you asked that. We've had over 8,000 live attendees at our webcasts since the beginning of 2020.
Well, while Elizabeth enjoys that wine, let's talk about the importance of staying connected globally, regardless of the language that you speak. And there's no one better at the Council to talk about that than our Trilingual Translations Committee Chair, Carlos Catano.
Obrigado, Troy. O SSC é um fórum global de segurança de pagamentos. E ser global significa que nos preocupamos em fornecer padrões de segurança de dados e recursos em diferentes idiomas para apoiar as partes interessadas em todo o mundo com mensagem e conhecimento consistentes. Aumentar as traduções se tornou uma prioridade e um novo foco desde que criamos a equipe de Stakeholder Engagement em agosto de 2019. Para apoiar esse objetivo, temos uma equipe de tradução que tem trabalhado incansavelmente, especialmente nos últimos 18 meses, completando 119 traduções de 27 documentos diferentes em 8 idiomas. Isso significa que traduzimos 33% de todos os documentos muito recentemente. E se você não olhou, encorajo você a ver o que há de novo. Isso inclui a tradução de certos documentos de suporte do PCI DSS na versão 3.2.1, materiais para pequenos comerciantes, os padrões do SSF na versão mais recente, PCI PIN Security, PCI PTS POI e PCI Card Production para 8 idiomas diferentes, que incluem chinês, francês e alemão, e tradução adicional do treinamento ISA para português, japonês e espanhol. No futuro, traduziremos também nosso treinamento Work from Home para vários idiomas, sobre o qual você ouvirá o Travis a seguir. E trabalhamos com a equipe de projeto do PCI DSS 4.0 no planejamento da tradução para que você tenha acesso às versões traduzidas no novo padrão muito mais rápido do que nunca. Todos esses documentos traduzidos podem ser encontrados no site público do PCI SSI e nos microsites individuais para cada idioma e também disponíveis no aplicativo móvel muito aguardado. Por favor, certifique-se de verificar esses documentos e fale conosco. Deixe-nos saber sobre qualquer feedback que você possa ter sobre essas traduções, incluindo quaisquer outros recursos que o PCI SSI ainda não traduziu e que você sinta falta para oferecer suporte à sua região. Também agradecemos às empresas patrocinadoras que ajudaram em nossos esforços de tradução. Obrigado NSPK para o russo, BQM para o turco e JCDSC para traduções japonesas. E obrigado aos membros do Conselho Consultivo Regional do Brasil que nos ajudaram a priorizar as traduções em português para apoiar o mercado brasileiro. Este esforço conjunto reforça o significado de ser global.
Thank you, Carlos. Having global awareness for these changes are critical. Our industry relations team is here to help you raise awareness in all corners of the globe. In fact, during this conference, we will have simultaneous translations as part of the chat feature so that you can talk to anyone here regardless of the language. We also translate several of our trainings into multiple languages and teach in Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese, to name a few. Being taught in a native language is an important aspect of the why is the closed captioning still on?
Now these are helpful.
Really? It's helpful?
Yeah, I barely understand you most of the time, so these are great.
Wait. Why is it not doing it when he's talking?
I guess to a lot of what you say. I like these. We should keep these on and do them more often.
Well, I guess it's a good thing that you're a trainer and I'm not then. Travis, why don't you share how we've been adjusting our training to remain connected over the past couple of years?
Thanks, Troy. As Troy mentioned, my name is Travis Powell. I'm the Director of Training for the Council. I want to take this time to talk to you about a couple of the bigger items that we've been working on over the last 18 months. The first thing I want to talk about is the day-to-day changes in our delivery of training. As many of you are aware, training has shifted to a remote delivery format that we like to call e-learning. E-learning training is a combination of computer-based training as well as instructor-led live sessions. We do plan to get back to in-person training at a regular cadence when the time is appropriate, though. Shortly after all the travel restrictions went into place, we worked with our testing partner to support remote exam proctoring. We still do offer in-person exams where they are available though. And the next thing I want to touch on is a new security awareness course that we developed. We like to call this course the Work From Home Security Awareness Training, but it was really designed to be best security practices that everyone should be aware of. This training discusses some of the do's and don'ts of remote working environments, including guidance on what you should be looking for as it relates to securing home networks in your home workspaces. We also like to review things in the class about phishing and ransomware attacks and best practices to identify and mitigate these types of threats. The training was designed to be low cost as well as be beneficial for people who don't have any in-depth cybersecurity knowledge. The Work From Home security training, like much of our other training, is also available as a corporate group training offering. During the last 18 months, we've updated nearly all of our courses to be available as corporate group trainings as well. This includes training not only for assessor organizations, but also for any company that wishes to take informational training to better understand programs that they may be involved with. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the return to in-person instructor-led training. About a month ago in September, we just completed our first in-person classes in over 18 months. We had a lot of extra space in Texas this year, so we wanted to use it to get back into the classroom while still being able to provide a safer learning environment. We kicked off the return to ILT with our QSA and ISA classes, and I'm happy to say that the classes were a big success. We hope to be offering more in-person training opportunities in 2022. Thanks again. Now back to you, Troy.
The work from home training that Travis just mentioned is a good example of how we're reacting to industry need. The distributed work environment has created many challenges, including how to effectively do a remote assessment. The PCI Council has put out a lot of content, much of which was influenced by our ongoing meetings with the Global Executive Assessor Roundtable, or GEAR for short. One of those active members is Yan Liu, who is the principal consultant at ATSEC, who has helped review our guidance for remote assessments. Over to you.
谢谢 Troy。2020年以来是特别的2年，我们不能面对面的相聚，讨论业务或个人感兴趣的话题，这也影响了我们基于不同安全标准的评估，比如 PCI DSS、卡生产、P2PE、PIN 等安全标准。在这特殊的时期，业界对远程评估进行了非常密切的讨论，比如我和 ATSEC 所参与的 GEAR 全球执行评估机构圆桌会议。其中近期重要的话题就是远程评估。GEAR 小组有很多有价值的讨论，比如说通过更多的培训内容来提高评估人员的相关技能 ，ISA 内审人员可以更好的支持 QIC 的远程评估等等。PCI 安全标准委员会在博客上发布了关于远程评估的指南。总体来讲，评估人员需确保评估的完整性，用于观察实时情况和收集证据的方法需提供至少与现场评估相同的保障水平。当然，远程评估存在挑战和局限，例如对机房物理安全的审查，评估人员亲眼目睹事件或者事件发生时的能力有所降低，证据的完整性和可靠性的潜在风险有所增加等等。另一方面，我们也看到了远程评估的优势，比如说降低了差旅的时间和成本，使得评估工作的时间安排更加灵活。参与者可以从不同的时间地点参与，我们共同积累的远程评估方法和经验会对未来的评估有所帮助。混合性的评估方法、部分远程以及更加专注的现场工作，也是这段时间我们和不同安全评估体系，如 PCI、NIST、GSMA、Common Criteria 等所积累的最佳实践。最后呢，也是希望很快的能够和大家见面。谢谢。
Thank you, Jan. In addition to the GEAR, another group of security professionals we hear from often is the forensic community that share important changes in trend to payment security. Here is Brandy Cumberland, our Director of Programs, to share a few of our learnings over the past 12 months.
These past 2 years, our PCI forensic investigators' work never slowed down, and according to Interpol and other law enforcement studies, cybersecurity attacks accelerated during the pandemic. We rely on our partnership with these industry experts to gather intelligence about changes in attacks against payment environments and to evaluate how we can communicate those learnings to you and consider changes to our standards and programs. Some of our learnings from PFIs, including common gaps with PCI DSS requirements 6, 8, and 11, are often cited as causing and/or contributing to compromises. In a nutshell, those requirements cover patching, multi-factor authentication, MFA, and testing or scanning. While PCI DSS's scope is limited to payment card data, applying those principles across your organization can be hugely impactful. MFA has been in the news as a prominent gap in some recent ransomware attacks, where single-factor authentication existed somewhere in the environment. None of us wants to be in the news for the wrong reasons, and adopting multi-factor authentication across your organization is key. Several years ago, Google published results of their own MFA implementation, not a successful phishing attack against their 85,000 employees since requiring use of physical security keys. Now, that's a great reason to be in the news when you're talking about security. Patching and monitoring go hand in hand. It's challenging to keep on top of patching requirements, so you must actively monitor to ensure you are mitigating the residual risk of any unpatched system. Splunk's The State of Security 2021 report noted that organizations need to move fast to understand the scope of the compromise and contain the incident. Mean time to detect, or MTTD, and mean time to respond, or MTTR, are key. Splunk recommends starting with Zero Trust, which rigorously authenticates the end user, and Security Operation Process Automation, where rules are written so that automated solutions identify and respond to attacks without human intervention and faster than a live actor can manage. These were the critical areas they identified after several high-profile cybersecurity attacks in the last year. Data compromises represent time, money, and credibility your organization can lose just like that. And overall, data breaches are preventable. While no one wants or expects to have a data compromise, a good contingency plan should include preparation to know how to quickly contact and work with a PFI. PCI SSC's Responding to a Cardholder Data Breach Guidance document is a great resource to understand how to engage a PFI. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's not just about having this intelligence. We must share it within our community, something that Rich Agostino touched on earlier. We're looking at several ways to share more of this forensic information with you, so stay tuned. In the meantime, make sure to check the PCI SSE blog for our Back to Basics series, including the Keep Software Patched video, to learn more.
Well, thank you, Brandy. You know, one of the resources for forensic data that I regularly read is the Verizon Data Breach and Incident Report. In their 2021 report, I found it interesting that for the first time ever, the number of incidents and breaches in the cloud surpassed that of on-prem. Now, there are caveats that a good portion of those locations were indeterminate in the report, but it shows the growth and saturation of cloud services. And as Cisco and other experts state, that the vast majority of Fortune 1000 companies have at least moved a portion of their operations to cloud architecture. That's why I'm proud of the work with the Cloud Security Alliance we did, including this recent paper highlighting the importance of proper cloud scoping. Here to talk more about this work is Jim Rivas, co-founder and CEO of the Cloud Security Alliance.
Thanks a lot, Troy. This is a very important document that we have collaborated on. It's very important that we understand scoping cloud computing environments and cloud security in general. So we like to start and think about the definitions of cloud computing, and you have software as a service where the merchant payment application often resides. The large infrastructure as a service, the cloud providers, where that's underneath that layer, and the merchant themselves. So when we talk about what are the high priority cloud security practices we think about today, data is very important, data security. We've got to make sure that all of that PII information is protected. We've got to encrypt wherever we can, mask where we can, follow whatever are the best security practices that we can follow. Multi-factor authentication is also critical. We've gotten to this point, we've got to get past the password itself, and we've got to be able to have multiple factors to make sure that people are who they are so we can protect them. We have to be thinking about that large infrastructure provider and understand, are they doing the right backups? Do we have the resiliency, redundancy between different data centers? That's very crucial. And a lot of the simple things to make sure that we have good hygiene and we're patching our systems and we're operating in a proper way. So I really look forward to reviewing the document more and getting it out there to the community and making sure that more people get access to this document. I think it's a tremendous piece of work.
Thanks, Jim. That was great. That was my only copy.
Okay.
Thanks. You know, cloud security is only growing in criticality. We've seen the industry embrace a migration away from traditional controls and protections, which is why the latest version of our HSM standard addresses these scenarios. A new version of the HSM standard is going to be available in the coming months. And we've seen cloud payments grow by more than 70% during the pandemic, as many small businesses that were brick and mortar only rushed to online solutions, as they were sometimes required to shut down their physical locations. The digital transformation has been the most prominent for them. At the same time, they're often the most vulnerable to criminal activity. I've asked my friend Giles Witherspoon Boyd to share some of his experience helping small merchants as an assessor. Giles?
The pandemic has taught us that now more than ever, we need to stick to the basics. Data breaches during this time of economic recovery could prove disastrous, as customers could lose confidence in your business, and that coupled with the cost of data breaches. The FBI received over 2,500 ransomware complaints in 2020. That's an increase of over 20% from 2019. Over 90% of malware and ransomware delivery method was via email, and over 40% of data breaches happen to SMBs. But there is hope. Protect your company and your customers by following these easy steps. Reduce where credit card data can be found. Choose trusted partners to assist with that task. Trusted partners can easily be found on PCISecurityStandards.org. And most importantly, think before you click.
Thanks, Giles. There's some additional great suggestions on our 8 tips for small merchants on our website, as well as the Back to Basics series we just published. Speaking of small merchants, I did a little shopping for you. I know with the pandemic I missed a couple of birthdays. So here, congratulations. In your move to Florida, you've just adopted a flamingo and an opportunity to wrestle an alligator at the state fair.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Now let's jump on a video call we have queued up with Candace Pressinger to tell us how the acquirers have been involved with the PCI Council and what issues are at the forefront for them. Hello, Candace. Sorry, I was on mute there. Hi, Candace, how are you doing? Oh, sorry, I was on double mute. There you go. Candace, can you hear me now?
Hello, Troy. Yes, I can hear you, and it's also nice to be able to see you too. Never has a simple word meant so much or had such importance and relevance as the word collaboration has had over this past 18 months or so. The global pandemic has had such an impact on the way we all interact and live. It breezed in like an unseen enemy and unfortunately hasn't blown out the way we had hoped it might at this point. The war against cybercrime is ever present. A report by the World Bank last year suggests that cyber damages could reach $6 trillion in 2021. That's equivalent to the GDP of the world's third largest economy. Financial institutions are 300 times more likely to suffer cyber attacks than any other companies. A survey has found that the average annualized cost of data breaches within financial services is a staggering $18.5 million. Acquirers are facing tough risk decisions daily, and these decisions have increased exponentially during the pandemic, with increases in synthetic identity fraud and account testing attacks. Collaboration is now more important than ever across all the payments ecosystem. As an acquirer, we're in a unique position, as we are the intermediary between our customers, suppliers, the payment brands, and the PCI Council. The Acquirer Forum is something that is run annually by the PCI Council, and it is an example of an excellent, safe, and anti-competitive environment where we get together to discuss payment-related security issues, such as the 8-digit BIN move, and so we can help understand how to properly mask and truncate PANs that have traditionally only had a 6-digit BIN. We share concerns, and we collaborate for the good of many. The meetings are highly interactive, and they're such a great way for us to learn about what the PCI Council is doing. And we also get a sneaky peek into any changes that they might be making to standards. Whenever I seek guidance or advice, the Council has always been there, and it's been very much at the forefront throughout this pandemic. They have been the glue that have held us all together, working with us all to ensure that payment security was not and has not been forgotten throughout these unprecedented times.
And Candace has been a tremendous support for us over the years in helping with the success of our Acquire Forum in London, and recently was featured in our Women in Payment series. In addition to what Candace mentioned about the in-person meetings in Europe, here in the United States we began this August with biannual meetings with ETA and their large processor council. If you are involved in that organization, please join us for those meetings, in addition to the Acquire Forums that will continue to be hosted throughout the year. For more information also on what she mentioned related to 8-digit BIN, we have some excellent new guidance and an update to several FAQs, including FAQ 1091 on the expected entropy for masking and truncating data. Another industry colleague that I've relied on his technical opinion on several occasions is Paul Creswick, who joins our working group at the difficult hours from Australia. Paul, I don't know if you can hear me. Candace was having some audio problems.
I can hear you just fine, Troy, but maybe you want to turn down the video a tad. G'day, I'm Paul Creswick and I work for the Australian Payments Network. AusPayNet has been an affiliate member of PCI for the last 9 years, and I, together with several of my colleagues, are active members of PCI working groups, including PIN, PTS and Mobile. Being Australian means that even before COVID, I was subject to the tyranny of distance, requiring online meetings in the middle of the night, as well as occasionally flying 30 hours or more, remember international travel, several times a year for physical meetings, including working through the final RFC comments on the first editions of SPOC and CPOC. One of the first COVID-dictated virtual meetings in early 2020, with everyone in lockdown worldwide, starting with an attendee in Portland, Oregon, each of us turned our camera to show the sunrise as the day progressed. Portland, Sydney, Beijing, Johannesburg, Berlin, Paris, and finally the Lakes District in the UK. I had never been quite so aware of the earth turning underneath me. Australia was and remains an early adopter of contactless technology. Statistics published by the Reserve Bank of Australia show that in 2013, about 10% of all point-of-transaction sales were card-based. By 2016, that had risen to around 32%, of which already 2/3 were contactless. In 2019, that had doubled to 63%, of which 80% were contactless. Phone brand pay wallets, combined with the introduction of SPOC and CPOC technologies, are doubling during COVID of the maximum value of tap-only no-PIN transactions to $200, and the reluctance of merchants to accept cash during the current pandemic are driving those numbers significantly higher. In order to maintain the security of these transactions, AusPayNet is committed to working with PCI in the development of new standards to address these new technologies being used for card-based payments. Thank you.
The working group members, like Paul, have the task of reading all the proposed changes and working on draft standards for review.
Ralph, what you doing?
Well, Troy, you said you could see me as MC, and I'd be great.
No, I said that you did a great job at ICMC, the International Cryptographic Module Conference.
Oh.
But, you know, while I have you here, I just want to say I just really appreciate all that you've done for the PCI Council over the years. You're a true subject matter expert on PIN and cryptography and many other subjects, and I always love to hear you speak. I want to thank you for your dedication and for your friendship. And it's been one of my greatest privileges here at the Council to call you my colleague. And as you now transition away at the end of the year from a full-time employee, I hope you know that you will always be remembered and never forgotten.
Thank you, Troy. So, you don't need me to continue?
Why don't you be my guest?
Speaking of contributions, we had a tremendous amount of feedback since we instituted significant changes to our request for comment process several years ago. Candace, I think we saw an overwhelming amount of comments come in for the PCI DSS 4.0 RFC.
Also, Candace, I would be interested what your thoughts were on my 7th comment from the 2nd RFC.
Hi, Troy. And hi, Ralph. You're right. We have received over 6,300 bits of feedback on PCI DSS across its 3 RFC periods. And while I don't have your specific suggestions memorized quite yet, the good news is that each comment will have a written response. All participants will have the opportunity to not only view all of the comments made, but see specifically how PCI-SSC actioned the feedback that they provided. That means if you contribute to an RFC, you will see how those comments are addressed in a formal feedback summary document published by the Council. RFC periods offer a unique opportunity for PCI-SSC stakeholders to provide feedback on existing and new PCI security standards. And since the beginning of our formal RFC process in February 2019, we've done just a touch under 20 RFCs, and 12 of which, including RFCs on secure software, contactless payments on COTS, and PCI DSS version 4.0, were completed during a pandemic. We've accumulated just about 9,000 feedback items that span across at least 9 of our standards. This feedback is critical to the ongoing maintenance and evolution of the resources for the payment card industry, and the input we've had thus far has been remarkable. Coming up shortly, you'll hear more from Lauren Holloway and John Bloomfield about the RFC process in detail, and more specifically how the RFC feedback has impacted the evolution of PCI DSS version 4.
Thank you, Candace. This global coordination we just spoke about, the connections we still have, it remains the most important aspect of the work we do. To learn together about the latest, to adjust how we protect everyone's payment data around the world, and share that among this broad and distinguished community. We will reconnect next year in person with the planned community meetings in Toronto, Milan, and Bali, and many other opportunities before then. In the meantime, with all these serious issues surrounding us, both within our industry and in the world, I do hope we still make the time to smile and enjoy each and every day, and know that you are part of an effort to make the world more secure in a meaningful way. Let's not lose these connections. Please stay engaged with us. And a great way to do that is with the upcoming conversation with the Council, where you can have chats on our current issues, as well as office hours to discuss specific questions you may have. Now then, let's sit back and get comfortable and enjoy the rest of our conference. You don't think I went overboard on the commie bit, did you?
Man, I have no idea what you just said. At least you weren't lederhosen, though.
Lederhosen. Very true.